Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created the show to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. And together with my guests, we provide the knowledge, skills, insight, and inspiration you need to find you're happy. So many of you who've been listening along or who follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm a huge believer in the fact that happiness is a choice. And it occurred to me recently that sometimes that statement can be considered controversial because it kind of sounds like I'm blaming people for their unhappiness, dismissing their real trauma and mental health issues, or really ignoring those types of issues altogether. The truth is that I'm actually someone who suffered with severe depression through my teens and early 20s and was medicated for post-traumatic stress disorder in my mid-20s after a traumatic experience of my own. So I really do understand that these issues are real, and I know how much work it takes to overcome them. So when I say that happiness is a choice, what I'm saying is that every day we have the opportunity to make a different decision about how we deal with our challenges and obstacles. And for some people and for some circumstances, that may mean something as simple as an attitude adjustment, but for other people and other circumstances, that may mean therapy or medication. So I just wanted to put that out there and encourage everybody to continue to make choices that support their happiness. On today's show, I chat with Rukayatu Tijani about the challenges she faced as a first-generation lawyer. She talks about how therapy helped her work through those difficulties, how she found the right therapist to work with, and how her experiences inspired her to found the First Generation Passion Project. We dive into how she balances it all as a biglaw associate and the founder of a new business. There's so much in the episode about perspective, facing challenges, and seeking help, so I know you guys will enjoy it. Welcome back to the Happy Lawyer Project, lawyers. I am so excited to be back behind the mic, and especially excited because I get to introduce you guys to today's guest, Rukayatu Tijani. Rukayatu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Akoma. So excited to be here. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Yes, this has been a long time in the making now. I know we've been going back and forth, so I'm excited to finally connect. And for those who don't know, could you share a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Absolutely. So, as Akoma Moronu said, my name is Rukayatu Tijani, which is short for Rukayatu, and I'm an attorney, and I am a corporate attorney, and I work in the Silicon Valley. So I do that by day. And by night and on my free time, I am the founder and the creator of an amazing organization called the First Generation Purpose Project, which is essentially an initiative designed to help first-gen rock stars, as I call us, or professionals, navigate life and career by using the grit and tenacity that's already on the inside of us. And as a proud first-generation professional, I'm still building the program out, and I'm building the program in alignment with what I would have needed as a first-gen professional graduating from law school. So that's a little bit of what I do. I'm a lawyer by day and the creator and founder of First Gen Purpose Project by night.
I love that. I mean, I myself am a first generation professional, so it's something that definitely resonates with me. My mother was, she never graduated from high school, and my dad, he, was of that generation where you kind of just got the first job you got out of college and kept it your whole life. So I'm very interested to hear kind of what the resources you think you wish you had and to see if they're similar to the ones I wish I had. But before we dive into all of that, I'd like to talk a little about your journey in the law and kind of how you decided to pursue your JD.
Yeah, for sure. So I've wanted to be an attorney since I was 5. And I think a lot of why I wanted to be an attorney also ties to the First Generation Purpose Project. But I wanted to be an attorney since I was 5 years old, ever since, I was in kindergarten and I heard what I would deem now kind of the rudimentary version of Brown versus Board of Education, and heard about Thurgood Marshall, then a lawyer, and before he passed, a justice. I heard about the NAACP, the Legal Defense Fund, Charles Hamilton Houston, and I learned about just the amazing strategy that was put in place to have Brown versus Board of Education and educational integration as we know it kind of become an American reality, right? So that was the inspirational reason, right? And then as I always say, like I'm Nigerian, so I don't really feel like I had a choice, frankly. Like I really feel like it was one of like a couple of options in terms of career trajectory, but I do love it. And I also I really love like just having creative ways to advocate for others. And it really does like satisfy my intellectual curiosity. So, I always thought that being a lawyer was a great fit. Yeah, and we can talk a little bit about like, even though I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 5, I eventually kind of wanted to quit because of the very things that I feel like I didn't know, which is why I eventually started the First Generation Purpose Project.
Yeah, let's dive right into that. I mean, I like a lot of lawyers, I think early in their career, despite whether they wanted to be a lawyer since they were 5 or they decided 5 minutes before they became a lawyer, they wanted to be a lawyer.
Right? Or they took the outside.
Exactly. We all face those days, those weeks, those years where we're like, this is just not what I thought it would be. I don't want to do it. I think there's far fewer of us who never have that moment. What was that like for you, and what kind of challenges were you facing early in your career?
Yeah. So to answer your question just like directly, the practice of law is, it's a practice. It's something that you're consistently developing. And I just didn't know what I didn't know about navigating the space, just in a myriad of ways. I didn't know what it meant to navigate the space as an actual like attorney in biglaw. So I graduated from Berkeley Law School in 2014. And after that, I studied for the New York bar exam, went back to New York and worked at a big corporate law firm in New York City. And the concept of like things like billable hours or attorney-client development or business development, like these were not things that I even knew about or knew to aspire to. So, and no one really talked to me about those things. So I think just in the day to day, those were just really difficult things to kind of find out piecemeal and navigate effectively. So, but even outside of just kind of like, the day to day of work, just being a first gen, at least in my experience, being a first gen professional, being a first gen attorney, I think one of the things that like in my experience, no one really talked about was kind of like the psychological and physiological underpinnings of like now kind of changing your identity in a sense. Like I came from the projects of Brooklyn, New York. I'm a proud, past resident of the projects of Brooklyn, New York. And once I graduated from law school, I left New York as a girl from the projects, but I came back as a girl, working and living in Upper Manhattan, right? And I came back really in a very different socioeconomic space. And there was an identity shift connected to that. So a lot of questions kind of came up during that time. Like, who am I? Who am I? Like, what does it feel like to be now a person of like a little bit more means than anyone in my family has ever had? What does it mean to like now be an attorney working in like a top firm? Like, what does that look like? How do I define myself in those spaces? And I think it was definitely like a mental vacillation and a physical vacillation of sorts. Like I felt like I was definitely navigating so many different worlds just by virtue of being a first-gen attorney. And like, exactly how does that look? Practically, that looked like me, going to a networking event one day and somebody saying, "Oh my gosh, I got these shoes for a steal. They were like $350." And me kind of like gasping and just saying, like, what? And then kind of visiting my mom in the projects of Brooklyn, New York on Sundays after church and, kind of seeing that like cab rides were a luxury. And there was like key in the elevator and needles in the staircase like that. These are the worlds that I navigated within the span of like a couple of days. So it was definitely like just like this vacillation that no one was really telling me was there. And I didn't really have the tools to kind of grapple or really appreciate what that meant. So that also made it hard. And I don't want to prolong it, but there were a lot of obstacles. And I think as a result of that, I wanted to quit. I was tired. I was tired of like the mental and physical vacillation. I was tired of just frankly like the lack of diversity in the legal field. I was tired of like no one really appreciating the difference in my story and me feeling like, and a part of me definitely felt like I couldn't navigate the space effectively while still staying authentic to myself. So I wanted to quit, but I feel like there was a lot of intervention, divine and otherwise, that kind of came into the mix. and made me not quit. People called me. I remember kind of like very determined to quit, like networking and hustling my way into an interview with like a top tech company as a diversity consultant. And the person literally just kind of like telling me, I feel like God is telling me to tell you don't quit. And I was like, wait, no, that's not how this works. I'm just trying to get a job. And she's like, no, don't quit. There's so much more like in alignment with your purpose. So, you know, I stayed a lawyer, but I decided to like kind of figure out, okay, what does it mean for me as a first gen professional, as a girl from the projects of Brooklyn, New York, as a girl who grew up, you know, in a single parent household on food stamps, like what does that mean to be a lawyer in this space? And what does it mean to leverage my background to be successful? And that's really why I started the First Generation Purpose Project. And that's essentially why, you know, I'm still a lawyer, because I have, I feel, found ways to stay authentic in corporate America, right? That sounds very interesting when I say it out loud, but yes.
There's so much to unpack in there, because I think that there's so many things about your story that make it really interesting and unique. Because I think the part about coming up in the projects in New York and then coming back to New York in a different way creates that juxtaposition. Because for me, I feel like a lot of that uncovering occurred in law school. I had never been around those types of people. And then going to an Ivy League law school in a city like New York, I kind of was exposed to it for the first time and got to do a lot of that self-discovery during that period. And I was very lucky to have my now husband with me, kind of us growing up together. And so him being a reflection in a mirror and a sounding board. And I think it's really one of the very foundations of our marriage today is that we went through that.
I love it.
Survived that period together. Because I definitely did have days where I said, I'm not like these people. You know,
Exactly.
Like they look like me, and like, it's not that I'm not smart enough to do it. It's that already I was behind.
Just like you came from like a different, like you were kind of cut from a different cloth. And I think there wasn't really an appreciation of what success looked like coming from people, like coming from such diverse, amazing backgrounds. And that was for me what kind of just like made me feel discouraged. It was like, it wasn't so much that I couldn't do it. It's just that I didn't see what it looked like for me to do it. Right. I didn't see that. I didn't see mentors like that. I didn't see a lot of people kind of talking to a lot of the issues that I felt like I was really grappling with on a day-to-day level and still being successful. So I totally understand where you're coming from in that regard.
And so what was that process like for you? You kind of made this decision that you were going to try to grapple with these issues. What did that mean practically?
Yeah, practically it looked like therapy. Like very practically, it looked like therapy. Very practically, it looked like me really kind of unpacking some of the trauma associated with the experience. So I did a presentation at Yale Law School as a result of like the First Generation Purpose Project, which was amazing. And that was kind of the first time I've just started becoming public about like kind of my story and what exactly like happened. So, and what, like, how did the quit happen, right? The quit happened by me kind of missing a major deadline when I'm in my clerkship and like literally like just kind of having like a mental breakdown of sorts. Because I felt like I was like consistently just running, trying to prove that I was good enough, smart enough, that I could do it all, and still like, you know, talking with my mom for 2 to 3 hours a week, if not per night. Cause you know, like they want to talk to you, really not forming really healthy boundaries and like all around. And it led to a breakdown of sorts. And I ended up like just really having to like kind of pause and really get back to what was it that what is the essence of who I am and what is the essence of what I want to do. And I started kind of building myself back up. I started building myself back up in my faith. I'm a Christian. I started building myself back up, you know, in therapy, specifically cognitive behavioral therapy. I started building myself back up by, you know, time management. I started building myself back up by really formulating a community of like-minded people who would support me, notwithstanding like what industry they were in. So that's really how I made it through, and I continue to make it through. And I encourage people to really, just start being real with the way you do life, and be courageous enough to walk in that. Yeah. And that's how I kind of got through.
I would like to touch briefly on the therapy point if you are comfortable with that, because no, we haven't really touched much on therapy on the show. And I think it's something that I haven't personally had much success with. I haven't actually tried therapy much in my adult life. I haven't talked much about this on the show, but as a teenager, I suffered with depression and anxiety, and I had lots of therapy associated with medication I was taking. And then I got went through a period in college where I did therapy in order to be allowed to get off that medication. And then I've been off medication ever since, and I've been out of therapy ever since. So it's been, over 15 years since I've been in therapy. And for me, therapy has always been associated with medication. And one of my, this is very personal, and I think everybody should make this choice for themselves. It was really important to me to not be medicated. And I think at that time it was what I needed, but I did think it was very hormonal. And I think my husband may disagree that my hormones have settled down quite a bit in my but I would be interested, because for me, things like coaching serve a similar purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'd be interested to understand, kind of, when thinking about therapy, what resources, like, how did you go out and find the therapist, and how do you,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Because I think there are people out there who may be interested, but they're just so like intimidated by like, how do I even build that relationship?
For sure. Yeah. So I also have engaged and sometimes still continue to engage with anxiety and depression. And I feel like just the field that we're in, the legal field, we have some of the highest rates, if not one of the highest rates of alcoholism and suicide and just all of these, kind of issues. And if I'm being honest, my first few years, I've definitely dealt with a combination of all of that, not drugs, not hard drugs, but, a little bit more wine than I probably should have, because I just wanted to ease the stress, or, definitely fell into what I would call a productive depression, where I just kept on working and working and working for fear that if I stopped, everything will just break down. Right. And I knew that wasn't going to be a healthy way to continue this career. So when I finally actually had my breakdown, I talked to my mental health. I talked to my primary care doctor, and I just asked him, I think I'm struggling with anxiety right now. Is there any type of therapy that you would recommend? And I was clerking at that time. I was doing a federal clerkship, and I just knew and I had one more year. It was part of I was 1 year in of a 2-year federal clerkship. So I just knew I had to figure out a way to just keep myself together for at least another year. Right. So I opted to take therapy to, again, build myself back up and to survive another year of my clerkship. And I asked my doctor, and my doctor recommended me to cognitive behavior therapy, which at the time really worked for me, because because cognitive behavior therapy is, I don't know if I'm giving the formal definition, but in my experience, cognitive behavior therapy is a combination of definitely listening and kind of unpacking what our thoughts are, but also giving us practical to do assignments, actual activities to help in the healing process. So my doctor or my therapist would oftentimes give me activities go out 3 times a week, because I wasn't going out at all. Or, call a friend, or read this book. And it was very much you get to be an active participant in your healing. Right. And that, to me, that resonated with me so much. And it really helped me understand the agency that I had in my healing. So, I finished a clerkship successfully. Amazing. I ended up getting a great, amazing firm job in the Silicon Valley. And my definition of why I needed therapy, or why I continue to do therapy, kind of shifted. It was very much, it came from, okay, I need to just survive, to, okay, I have really, really, really big goals for myself. And I have really big dreams for myself. And sometimes they really scare me. So I just need someone to kind of sit with me, to help me unpack what's going on physiologically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, as I'm going on this journey to these very, very big dreams and very big goals for myself, and also give me practical tools to just deal as I'm walking on this journey to the bigness of what these goals are. So now with my therapist, like I really just talked to her about like if I got a lot of great feedback from something that I did with the First Generation Purpose Project, or I got a lot of great feedback with one of the cases that I'm working on. Like, yeah, that's exciting, but it's also kind of overwhelming to some extent. It's like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't mess the next one up, right? So it was helping me. Therapy now helps me kind of unpack what it means to be on this amazing, big, very privileged, very awesome journey that it is to be a lawyer / entrepreneur in the Silicon Valley. And the way I found my therapist, I know I'm taking a long time, forgive me. The way I found my therapist, it was actually really funny. So I'm a person of color, I'm a Black woman. And I remember just like not finding people of like therapists of color in the Silicon Valley. And they're super expensive. A lot of them are out of network. So that's also kind of annoying. But I remember just calling my insurance agency or my insurance company and just saying, I need a therapist of color. This is crazy. This is ridiculous. And that didn't necessarily work. But I kind of took a break from finding a therapist. And then a friend recommended that I just like take another stab at it. So I looked up a therapist in the local area and I found like this really, really awesome woman of color. She's Filipina. And I've been with her for a little over a year at this point, and we've hit it off, and she's awesome, and she gets me, and we both cry together, and I love her. And she constantly reminds me that I'm like less than 2 degrees away from Beyonce. So it's like, yeah, I will continue to pay you to help me. Like, I will continue to pay you. So yeah, that's a little bit of a lot, I guess, of my story.
No, that's amazing. No, I really appreciate that. And I'm so glad that you were willing to share, because I think that I talk a lot about coaching because I think the coaching I received for myself, because it's served for me a very similar purpose. It's so funny when you talked about when you have successes and also sharing that with your therapist, because literally today I got very positive feedback from my GC, probably the most positive feedback that I've gotten in my professional career. And I was like in complete
Yay, congratulations.
It's good and it's great, but it's like when I'm kind of between coaches now, because I feel like I'm in a different stage and what I need.
Like you're growing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm also having a really hard time letting go of her because we've been through so much together and she got me here. But I also feel like the work that she does no longer resonates with where I'm trying to go next.
I see. Yeah.
I'm between coaches and my instinct is to want to tell her because she's the person I would have told, but I'm like, I'm not paying her anymore. She's not really my friend.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure.
So my poor husband is back to playing coach until I can find my new coach. But the thing you said also about finding somebody of color really resonates with me. For those who follow me on Instagram, they know that I've kind of in the last 6 months been going through this whole, I love to read. I read a ton, and I've been going through this whole phase of really, I listen to audiobooks because my eyes at the end of the day are too shot to read physical books anymore. I just can't have white men in my ear all day, every day, telling me how to show up in the world. And so, and nothing, like my husband's a white man, so I'm not saying I love all God's people.
Yeah, there's a complexity to it. But
I just felt like it had been like months since I'd heard anything other than like a white, successful white male telling me how to show up in the world and how to be the best version of myself. And I felt like there needed to be more perspective and there need to be other perspectives and other voices. And so over the last 6 months, I've really been focused on building that community of people of color. And even with this book project that we were talking about before we jumped on, I wanted to make sure that my illustrators are all people of color. My branding person is a person of color. Like,
I love it. Yeah.
Wanted to create that community and give opportunities to the type of people who, to walk the walk basically, and not just raging against the machine.
Absolutely. Because representation matters. It does. And, and I think we both have an appreciation of the diversity of like our lived experiences. Like you have, you're in an interracial relationship, your children are interracial. Like there's a beautiful, like your family's literally like the United Colors of Bennington, right? Like such a beautiful like canvas, right? And I'm in the Silicon Valley. A lot of my mentees are white. A lot of my mentees are white men. A lot of my friends are white. Like, so there's definitely an appreciation for just like the humanity of the people that we engage with, right? But there's also this like very frank need for representation. And I don't think these things are like mutually exclusive of each other. And I don't think they conflict with each other. It's like, I tell people that like, I work in an amazing law firm, but I constantly tell them like, as much as I love, working in the legal field, there's no diversity here. And that still makes me sad. Yes, I feel amazingly privileged. Yes, the work that I do is awesome. And yes, the things that I get to do are just super amazing. But it still makes me sad, if not mad, that there's still not enough people who look like me in these spaces. And I will continue to feel that way until we reach, I forgot the number, but until we reach like just true diversity and belonging. Not just diversity for the sake of diversity, but belonging.
And the belonging piece is so crucial. And it's, to be honest, the one that took me the longest to understand, because as somebody who moved a lot and who never looked like her parents, like when I went to visit family,
Right?
I always have stuck out like a sore thumb. So like the idea of belonging based on like how people look has never been something that resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that comes naturally to me or something that I look for. And so it was really probably not till my late 20s that I really understood that desire for from other people. Like I understood it intellectually, but had never really felt it myself.
Yeah.
But I still feel that need to belong, and it looks different. And I think sometimes we brush people with the broad stroke.
Absolutely.
If there are enough, to your point about true belonging and really true diversity, we think that if there are enough people of color, that all the people of color will then feel comfortable. But people of color aren't for the same. It's not like it's just.
No, we are not. No, we are not.
So let's
I feel like that's a discussion that we should have offline.
Let's transition into what you are doing with First Generation Purpose Project, because you've talked about it a little bit already and kind of what your goals are and kind of what inspired you to do it. But how are you thinking about bringing those resources to the people that you serve? And you've talked about speaking a little. What else are you thinking about building out, or what other resources do you currently have through the project?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 3 resources that I really have is one-on-one consulting, speaker presentations, and pretty much just like inspirational stories of my journey, like as a first generation professional on social media. So you've probably seen like my Instagram. I kind of drop nuggets of like wisdom or my experiences or inspirational quotes that for me would like, I hope resonate with first generation professionals. And then I talk through speaker presentations. So, I gave a presentation, on the East Coast a couple of months ago, and I talked about very practical ways first generation professionals can leverage their experiences to thrive in the work setting. And not only in the work setting, but also in life. So I talk about making a budget and forming financial boundaries. I talk about incorporating self-care into your schedule. I talk about investing in a therapist or a counselor or a coach. I talk about investing in a career coach. That's an entirely different thing. I talk about going to workshops and events that simply intrigue you and continue to like just really feed your sense of curiosity. I talk about redoing your LinkedIn account, because now you're a boss and you can walk in these spaces full in the bigness of who you are. And I talk about traveling and simply enjoying the fruits of your labor, however that looks for you. And I talk about these things because I really want to put the first gen professional or the first gen rock star, as I define them, back in the center of their narrative. I think oftentimes, and I can't generalize, but in my experience and the experiences of other first gen professionals that I've had the privilege of engaging with, we oftentimes are helping, others. And whether it's helping our mom through certain proceedings, or at least in my experience, helping my mom through like food stamp proceedings, or helping my mom like figure out Section 8 housing. We're oftentimes like utilizing our resources and our skills to help others. But I want to put the first gen professional back in the center of their narrative and say there's a purpose attached to who you are, and there's a bigness attached to your journey, and you really get to invest in that. And in fact, for the sake of everyone else around you, you have to invest in that. You have to, unpack what it means to like be in a totally different world from the peers that you grew up with and the family members that you grew up, that raised you. You get to, and to some extent, you have to unpack like what it means to navigate this space and to really learn what you need to learn to navigate this space successfully, whether it means going to workshops, whether it means like really, like for me, going to the office on Saturday mornings and reading a bunch of legal books just to make sure I honed my writing skills. You get to like make a budget and form financial boundaries because you're in a totally different ballgame right now, right? And there are responsibilities, I think, that come from you walking in this new purpose or walking in this new space. You really get to look at what it means to be a full first-gen professional in this new space that you're now navigating. As you one-on-one consulting, that I'm still rolling that out, but it really is like just speaking to like first-gen professionals and young attorneys and just young people who are just interested in speaking with me about like how they just view life. I love talking to young people. I love talking to like professionals and just like talking to them about like problems or issues that they have and really taking time to unpack it and really taking time to figure out creative ways to solve those issues. So those are the things I offer.
I love how complete that picture is and how you really touch on the whole person. And I think that that's something you're starting to see, as slow as it may be, more and more in the legal profession. I would be interested to know, I, like you, have a full-time job and also do this, side thing. So I'd be interested in knowing how you kind of work all this out with work. I don't know how much you can say, but kind of what is their perspective? How much do they know?
Yeah.
Schedule.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So, I'm a fangirl of the Happy Lawyer Project. I love your podcast and I love the people that you bring on your podcast. And one of the people that you brought on your podcast is my soul sister, and she's also my business coach, Titilayo Tinubu Ali, who runs Own Your Expertise. And she talks about ways to really kind of leverage your like personal brand to go forward in your career. And I never thought that was something that I could practically do, especially in like a place like biglaw, right? Like biglaw in the Silicon Valley. But practically speaking, what I do and what I have done is really just become very, very intentional about my time management. So what does that look like? For me, I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I know that sounds intimidating, but it really isn't. It really just is like an electronic to-do list. Like that's really all it is. Like anything that I can think of during the week, I just write it on this Excel spreadsheet. And then for 15 to 20 minutes every Sunday, I take 2 sticky notes. One is called personal and the other one is called like business or work. And I look at this entire list of all these things that I feel like I need to do. And I take about 5 to 6 of them or 7 of them. And I put the personal things on the personal sticky note, and I put the work-related things on the work sticky note. And this is where my self-care comes in. If it doesn't fit on the sticky note that week, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm just not. It's like something really bad has to happen for me to like go back to the to-do list and go outside of my sticky notes. Maybe like a temporary restraining order or something along those lines, or somebody's dying, right? Or something goes awry. That's like how I become intentional with my time management. And then I set expectations for the week. I pray about the week. That's like kind of like a ritualistic experience that I engage in every week. But in terms of how I kind of make it work with my job, I started just kind of telling them like, hey, this is what I do. And, this is what I'm really interested in continuing to do. And people at my job have been really, really receptive. In fact, my firm actually kind of co-sponsored my first client endeavor. So when I went to the East Coast to speak at a law school out there, my firm happened to be recruiting at the same time. And they were like, yeah, do it. And in addition, come to our recruiting event and we'll like make sure we sponsor you. We'll make sure we support you. And they supported me. And not only did they support me, like just, on the ground level, they shared my post on LinkedIn. They are asking me, okay, so what is this? Because I also think another way that I've learned to kind of make it work was really speak to their bottom line too, right? Like I am part of a law firm. They do care about like money also, but they also care about forming very, very substantive and sustainable business relationships. So with me knowing that, what I did was like after I went to, this school on the East Coast, hit it off, had this amazing presentation, shared it on LinkedIn. It ended up going viral, got almost 200,000 views, over 2,000 likes. And I just kind of like unpacked who was liking my post, who was looking at my post. And I kind of screenshotted that and I sent it to like the upper people. And I was like, listen, this GC is liking my post. This person who's in-house at this business is liking my post. This person is liking my post. These lawyers are liking my post. I know you're interested in getting that business. They're liking my post. And I kind of turned it in a sense into something that would make my firm want to invest in me. So when they saw that, people were really resonating with my story being a first-gen professional, because again, the first-gen narrative is a lot more commonplace than we think. And it encompasses so many diverse people and so many diverse stories. And that's what I love about, the First Generation Purpose Project. I meet so many people from so many different backgrounds, including GCs, including like partners and top attorneys and people who work in-house. And so a lot of people from different industries and different parts of the legal sector were really resonating with my story. So I shared that with my firm, and, keeping the bottom line in my head, I knew that was going to be something that they were also going to be receptive to. And they ended up like really wanting to jump on board. Now we're, talking kind of through the logistics of what that looks like, but it is something that they support. And it's something that I speak very openly about.
This is one of the things that I feel like I want to shout from the rooftops, because when people ask me why I loved Big Law so much, I couldn't really fully communicate that aspect of Big Law, is that there's just so much money that they don't know how.
Right?
Well, it's not
even know how to spend it.
That's what I mean. Like they just need a good idea.
Spend it on me.
Law firms want, there are good people in big law firms who want good ideas on how to support their associates of color, to support their female associates. But I find that so many associates are complaining at the opportunities the law firms are offering instead of coming up with the opportunities they want and asking for this.
Oh, yeah.
And I always was somebody who could convince the firm to pay for
me too.
Conferences, pay for all sorts of workshops that weren't
so fun.
Traditional. I mean, I went to the stuffy legal stuff too, but there's all this other new innovative stuff that they have no idea about. And when you bring it to them, explain to them why it has value, they can afford to send you. They have no idea. Do you know what I mean? And it's incumbent on you.
I absolutely know what you mean.
Take agency in your own development. So I get so excited about this because it's the thing I miss most about being at a law firm.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I started the podcast was because I really did feel like I was missing ways to connect with the community and with other lawyers. Because when I was at the firm, it was I had all of these resources to kind of support me. I could go to law schools and I could speak. If I saw there was a cool conference that I wanted to speak at, I could get the law firm to send me, and I had their name behind me. And so it gave me out to pitch myself.
Right.
Whereas now I have the podcast as my pseudo
which is awesome as well. But which is really, really awesome as well. Absolutely. And one of the things that I just want to say really quickly, that we're both really touching on is the agency that we have in this experience, but also I started having a lot more fun once I realized I can be a lawyer for myself too, right? I think oftentimes, as lawyer, why am I here if I'm not using it for my benefit, right? So And what exactly does that look like? For me, that looks like learning trademark and copyright and intellectual property protection so I can protect my own brand. So I can protect, it looks like looking at the books during my free time, all these books that are that are on the bookshelves in the libraries, and looking at these things on my free time. Also, like to possibly like to work on the trademark and copyright and intellectual property cases, but also kind of like know how to trademark my brand, right? Know how to trademark my work, know how to do what works for me, but also advocate on behalf of myself using the litigation skills and the argument skills and the research skills that I use for my clients all the time. And I think oftentimes we forget that we can be lawyers for ourselves too. And we should actually utilize the skill sets that we learn to zealously advocate for our clients. We should use that for ourselves as well. And that's what I do. I do that all the time. Like I will send emails as my exhibits to my case and say, listen, like on this date, this happened. We should align with this. And that's all for me. It's not for any client. There's no billing matter. There's no client matter number attached to it. It's like for the case of Rukayatu Tijani.
I love that. I absolutely agree. And I think that I would even, one nuance that I would also want to add to that is we also have to give ourselves the grace that we give our clients to not know everything.
Absolutely.
Right? Like when we advocate for our client, we listen to what they need. We understand they don't know everything. Mm-hmm. We understand they're emotional. We understand how important it is to them. And that's why they're not seeing clearly. And we bring our skills to try to figure out how to solve their problems. And I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves when we're trying to advocate for ourselves. We're like, why don't I know this? And if you know it, you would say, that's fine. That's why I'm here. And I know it seems like now I have a split personality, but the point is to
not at all.
The lawyer
I embrace the complexity of it all.
And to give yourself
for
that
sure.
grace and to
absolutely
hear yourself out, you know what I mean? To kind of work through all your thoughts, put them all out, and then put your lawyer hat on and try to, with clearer eyes, advocate for yourself.
Yeah. And who's stopping you from like asking your colleagues about some of the things that are important to you, right? Like who's stopping you, right? Like I not use because that's like a bad way of saying it, but I definitely leverage the experiences of my colleagues for so many things. And they do the same thing with me. Like, yes, we will talk about a case that has a specific client matter number or specific billing number attached to it, but we'll also talk about life, right? And I think that's one of the best, another way the law firm became really fun was when I just really started to like see just how privileged I was to be amongst so many brilliant people that I can ask all these questions to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all the free legal advice, right? Not really, but kind of, right? Like you got to buy somebody Starbucks or something or like a coffee. But it was like, I really get to like learn as much as I can in this amazing space of brilliant attorneys. And I'm so excited. I'm just so excited.
You sound like me at that stage in my career, and it just makes me so happy because I remember when it started to be really fun. You know, when I started to really enjoy, like I always had friends at the firm, but I never really enjoyed them for kind of this, I was like, I like them despite them being lawyers. Do you know what I mean? And then at some point, I like them. That was part of what
it's like, you actually know what you're doing. Like you can actually go in a court case and file and like be a boss in a court. Yeah. Whoa, that's another level. I respect you. And we can too. Like you can too, Akoma. I can too. And that's what makes this, well, you're corporate, but that's what
I shouldn't be in a court. If I'm in a courtroom, things have gone terribly, terribly wrong.
Well, you can read really, really amazing contracts and parchment for me, and I can argue as to why they shouldn't be enforced. So like we all need each other. And I think that's the most like exciting part about being a part of this field. It's like I really get to satiate like my intellectual curiosity, and I really get to solve real issues, not only particular to my clients, but also to me. Like the skill sets that I've used to help my mom and, as a first gen professional, help my father. Just, it's been such a blessing, such a blessing.
So before we transition to the next segment, I have one last question for you. And that is, what is the advice you would give to that first generation professional who feels like it's easy for you because you're smart, or
right?
you're at a top law firm, you're at like all of these advantages that you have that they don't have, and they're just not as lucky as you are. So they can't have the success that you've had.
Yeah. So that I'd unpack that. I really unpack that. And I think it's really easy for a lot of people to say that when they don't necessarily know my story. And, I'm not the type of person that tries to justify like why I'm the same, like, I'm just like you. It's like, yeah, I am a boss. Like, yes, I am. Like, I really am confident in like my skills, and I'm confident in who I am. But I also really show the complexity of my story and my background. There were a lot of after school programs in the projects of Brooklyn, New York, where I grew up that helped me. And there were a lot of mentors and a lot of sponsors and a lot of tutors and a lot of LSAT instructors and a lot of people who kind of helped me along this meandering path. And I think without them, I don't know if I'd be as successful. So that's definitely one part of it. And with that, I encourage so many people to like definitely utilize the resources that are around them, but also know that everything that they need to become everything that they want is already in them. So one of the things that I consistently tell first gen rock stars, as I call them, as a result of like my business, is there's like, by virtue of you being a first generation professional, your grit and tenacity should already be assumed. Like that is assumed. Like just the fact that you are like the first in your family or the first generation to get to such a space of like prominence and privilege, like there was a lot of work that you had to do in order to get there. Like there's no reason why that work or that work ethic can't now be leveraged to get you to another level. And let's talk about practical ways that we can make that work, right? Like it's not just, oh, I'm just going to toot my own horn and talk. And yes, I'm all of these beautiful things. It's like, let me break down to you, if you're willing to sit down and listen with me for a second, how exactly I made this work, how exactly I was able to form those financial boundaries, how exactly like I went into like my office every Saturday and read like all of these books just to make sure I knew how to write, and I learned to write, right? Like a lawyer, for whatever that means. How exactly I budgeted, how exactly I, like scheduled my therapy appointments. Like I'm willing to talk about the very, very practical piecemeal steps that I engaged in to get to where I'm at. Yeah. So I think that I think my answer to the, oh, you're so smart, you're so this, I'm like, yes, I am. And here's how I did it. And here's how you can do it too.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And now we are going to transition to the second segment of the show, which I lovingly call the happiness hot seat. And this is just a round of quick fire questions that I always want to ask people and I never have time for. So I just add them all in the middle of the show because I always want to know these about my guest. So are you ready?
Yes.
Great. Number 1, how do you deal with overwhelm?
Whew, good question. I deal with that by prayer, a lot of prayer and meditation and therapy, because my therapist reminds me that I'm 2 degrees away from Beyonce, so why not? And riding my bike. So that's how I deal with overwhelm.
I just want to highlight that what you said was not I do more. What you said is I take a break and get some perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think there's so many people when they feel overwhelmed think that if they just do more, they could just get out from under it. And then it's a vicious cycle.
Absolutely agree.
Number 2, how do you prioritize your own happiness? Like, what do you do in particular?
Yeah, I think it's kind of in alignment with what you just said in terms of doing less. I say no. And I need to probably get nice on how I say no, because I've literally just like sent entire emails back, just like, no. have a great day. And really carving out time for random excursions like the movies. Like, so, you know, I think one of the things about Big Law sometimes is like it can ebb and flow the time. There can be times that you're working so many long hours and times that you're like working probably like 3 to 4 hours that day and like nothing else to do. So on those days, instead of like panicking, I go to
Yep.
the movies. I'm like, you know what?
Yes.
Whatever.
God, I missed that about
I'm
Big
gonna go to the
Wow.
movies. I know I'm gonna go to the movies today. I've definitely found myself in the movies or at the movies on very random Tuesdays, like the matinees, like just watching a movie and enjoying myself. So that's what I do to prioritize my own happiness. I get frozen yogurt and I go to the movies on like random Tuesdays or Wednesdays.
I like that so much. Could you also give an example of something maybe recently that, or something surprising that you've said no to? Like, what are you saying no to these days?
Oh, yes. I said no to a panel discussion. And oh, no, 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 this one is better. I said no to, and I don't even know how to articulate this without coming off as like, I hope this doesn't come off as me. I said no to like one-on-one like mentoring with like several people because I just didn't have it and I didn't think it was going to be fair to them and me to pour so much into a person who frankly I just didn't know was going to receive it. So I kind of turned that no around into a business opportunity, honestly. One of the law schools in my area asked me to like be a mentor and I was like, I can't do that. But better yet, the First Generation Purpose Project does speaking opportunities. So I can do that. So we have a call like next week. So I said no for my happiness, but I said yes for my coins.
That's so good. And it's so good because you don't feel guilty about that. Do you know, like, I feel like there's so many people
Yeah,
who think it's, especially for women of color who have had some success, they
absolutely.
feel like it is our, like we have an obligation to sacrifice to help those after us, which
I agree.
I do believe that we have a responsibility to give
I
back,
agree.
but it's not at our own expense. And
I agree.
one of my
I
biggest pet
absolutely agree.
these days is I'm so tired of hearing young female attorneys say that they're passionate about pro bono because all pro bono
I'm
means is
right.
working for free. You are passionate
Yes.
about working for free. That is not what you mean. What you mean is
Girl,
you're passionate
listen.
about practicing law to serve a community, and you need to tell me what that
Yes.
community is. Because when you say to the universe, I am passionate about pro bono, what you're saying to the universe
Yes.
is I am passionate about using my skills to not make money. And I am all about
Listen.
giving
Oof,
back. I
you
am
are
all about
preaching.
community. I love that. And I want to support you in that. But when you email me and you tell me that your passion is pro bono, that is not a passion.
That is not a passion. Pro bono will not pay your bills.
That's what I mean.
It's
And pro
not.
bono,
It literally won't. It
and
won't.
you can
It's
literally
nice.
do
It'll
pro
help you build a
bono.
skill set, but that is not my passion is is becoming the best lawyer that I can be. That's my passion. My passion is, and maybe substantive, like corporate, like securities, patent, but my passion is like, paying off these loans. and,
Oh gosh, that's a good day.
but
That is a
but one
good
of the
day
things
when
I
you
talk
pay those
about
off.
is one of the things I talk about is representation burnout because like representation burnout is a thing.
Yep.
And what that means is like if you're the only, and I also have another saying that like is more tongue in cheek. I don't know if I can say it here, cut it out if I can't, but I call it the pamphlet Negro. And what that essentially,
I already know what it means, but go ahead.
you know what it means, the pamphlet Negro or the pamphlet person of color or the pamphlet Latina X or the pamphlet Asian girl or the pamphlet Asian woman is like the person, like I remember when I was like getting accepted to all these amazing law schools and they started sending me like pamphlets, right?
Yep. Oh, I'm on
And I
so
would see
many of
like,
them. I know.
exactly, I would see like one Black person, possibly like in like all of the same pictures, maybe in a different sweatshirt. And I'm like, so they couldn't get like another Black person? They couldn't get like, so anytime like I'm asked to do so many diversity things that are just frankly going to take away from the amount of billable, like amount of hours that I bill, the amount of work that I do, the amount of work that I actually enjoy doing, I tell my friends, I'm like, I refuse to be the pamphlet Negro right now. So what I do, like, I really do like work through ways to make sure that I'm still engaging in social impact because I am really passionate about diversity. I am really passionate about making sure, we get more people who look like us in the law. But I'm also, that's not what I do. That's not my job. Right. And one of the things that I think we as like women and people of color just don't get really clear about is, yes, this is something I love to do, but it's not my job. It's not my job. Like I don't actually like, there's no diversity manager in my title. It's associate. It's corporate associate. So that also helped me become very, very frank and forthcoming with what I'm willing to do at my actual job, at my firm. Because I think I think Andre Lord said it, or some really amazing person said, they said they'll abuse you, and if you don't speak up, like they'll think you like it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like people consistently have asked me like to do a recruiting event or to speak on this panel or to do this, and I start telling people no, no, because I don't only say no, I say no, and I make it very clear why. And it's not like something personal. It's not like I'm not going to be the pamphlet Negro. No, it's not that. Like that's personal. I'm not telling you that. Like I tell my friends that, right? But it's no because I'm working on a securities case.
Yep.
No because I'm about to prep for a deposition. No because I'm about to prepare for a hearing. No because I'm doing things that you've actually hired me to do as an attorney here. So that's my no, and it's very clear. But before saying that to them, I had to get clear with myself. I had to get clear with how I was like aiming and intending to show up in the legal field. And yes, I'm passionate about diversity, but I am not a diversity manager. I'm not. That's not my job.
Yep. And I was very lucky, and I want to just put this out there because I want people to know this does exist, and it's something that you should push for and champion for in your own firms if it doesn't already exist, is that I was lucky enough to work for a firm where we were allowed to bill a certain amount of hours a year towards that type of work, because the idea is if it either contributes to the firm and is of value and I should get credit for it, or it shouldn't take away from my ability to meet my billables because you're sending me all over the country doing recruiting events.
Yes.
So
I have definitely made that a point. Oh my gosh, Okoma. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So when they found out that I was going to the East Coast to do a presentation, and my firm is awesome. I think it was definitely, and I didn't think it was like them trying to undercut me or anything, but I guess like what didn't come up in conversation from their part was, oh, we should compensate you. And I very much made it clear, you should give me credit and you should pay for my flight and you should pay for my host. Like you should pay for these things because the moment like my firm's name comes out of my mouth, you're paying me. Like, I don't care if it takes 10 seconds for it to come out of my mouth. It doesn't have to come out of my mouth.
Yep.
But you want it. Like, it is in your interest for it to come out of my mouth. So the moment it comes out of my mouth, you're paying me.
And it's not even like it has to be clear, it doesn't have to be a confrontational thing. Because in my experience,
no, not at all.
Do you know what I mean? The firm is more than happy.
Yeah.
They just literally do not think of it. They think you're, your point, they think you're going to do it for free because you're going to enjoy it, and that it didn't occur to them that it's an imposition and that they're taking something of value or getting something of value for free. And of course, everyone tries to get something for value for free,
Exactly.
But who can better bear the cost of that? It's not me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's come out of someone's pocket.
Exactly. And again, it goes back to the advocacy for ourselves. So it's like, yes, I am very passionate about like this diversity, but I also know my firm's bottom line, right? So I definitely crafted the narrative in a way that made, and it was accurate. Like it wasn't like an inaccurate narrative, but it's like I definitely made it. I'm not pulling any strings or anything, but I definitely made it very clear, like by virtue of you utilizing or leveraging my skills, both as an attorney and as a person who knows a lot about diversity and social impact and social media and all of that, by virtue of you using all of those amazing skill sets in combination with one another, it is actually benefiting your bottom line. Like I'm actually helping, connect you to in-house attorneys or people at huge corporations or people at huge, like potentially huge clients. And that's something that could benefit you. So that's why, like, it's not simply, like you said, it's not confrontational. It's not like, pay me. It's like, this is an investment. This is an investment in the whole person. And you really get to invest not only in my skill set in terms of billable hours, but you also get to invest in like my diversity acumen. You also get to invest in my social acumen. You also get to invest in so many different things that can help propel this institution forward. And again, it goes back to like just really how much of an asset you think of yourself in the spaces that you navigate. Like I had to get very, very real about what am I bringing to the table? And it wasn't just like, yes, it was an ability to, parse and break apart and really unpack legal arguments and break them down and build them back up and argue in court and do all of that. Yeah, that's amazing. But I can also, really talk to what it looks like to be a person who looks like me in these spaces, which attracts a lot of people I've come to learn.
Yep.
Which a lot of people have become receptive to. So just because it's something I enjoy doesn't necessarily mean I don't have to get paid for it. What? Ugh.
And to be, we're going French on this. And to be fair, most law firms already have budgets for this. So it's not even like,
oh my gosh,
asking them to
law
find
firms,
money.
law schools,
exactly.
law programs.
There's already money allocated, and they're looking for someone to give them a reason or a way to spend it. So
I would be that person.
I quickly learned what the budget was. Like there were people who could very easily write checks for X amount of money without having to ask very much permission. And so if I could find conferences and trips that kind of fell under that budget, it wasn't a hard ask.
Yes, exactly.
That was not
You're
a
saying
hot seat at all. So
I know. I don't know.
Let's go to number 3. Can you briefly describe a mindset shift that you had that really changed your life?
Absolutely. I am abundant. That was the mindset shift that changed my life. I am abundant. I don't have to subscribe to a mindset of poverty and scarcity. So that was a mindset that definitely changed me for the better.
I don't want to go too off the rails again.
I know, because we're on a hot seat.
I know. Where did that come from? How did you develop that mindset?
Oh my gosh. I definitely took some professional development classes or programs that helped me. But I think a lot of it was like just drawing on my faith. It was very much like, well, if God is infinite and if God is in you, then who are you? And I think that was like that reasoning just resonated with me so heavily in my heart and in my head that I was like, yeah, like God, is really with me in these spaces, or, this higher power is really with me in these spaces. So who am I to think that I'm small? Like, who am I to think that I can't leverage the resources that are all around me?
I think so much about abundance. And to go back to the children's book, one of the things that I really drive throughout the books and the series is really, it's not just about learning, this is a penny, this is a dollar, but it's really about trying to change the minds of young people around abundance. Because I think so much of what we teach children about money is scarcity. Like, we don't have enough money for that. You don't need that. You can't afford that. And so we don't teach them to think about what is enough, right? Like, you don't need to consume constantly to be full, because
oh my gosh, yes,
that is already inside of you. But at the same time, it's not that we don't have enough money to buy it. It's that we're choosing different decisions and different ways to use the resources we have. So I definitely
to manifest the fullness of our purpose. Like, we're choosing different ways to manifest the fullness of our purpose. And that was another part of the complexity of like poverty versus like abundance, because I think a lot of people may think, abundance is like much in alignment with overconsumption, right? And it's like, that's so far from the truth. Like, there are people who are absolutely billionaires and are still living in that poverty mindset. There are people who are like, have so much money, have so many resources, have so much wealth, and are still living in that poverty mindset. Like, the scarcity mindset is essentially the idea that there is not enough. You are not enough. I am not enough. There is not enough. This is not enough. It's like this idea of like, I have to keep on chasing what enough is. And the abundance is saying, I'm complete.
Yep.
Even if nothing else ever happens, I'm okay. And I'm good. Everything that I need to like navigate these spaces, to overcome these obstacles, to get through this journey, to manifest the fullness of my purpose and potential, that's already inside of me.
Yeah.
And there's
What
something
better
so
message?
simple yet so beautiful with that.
Could we, like, that for me is the message that I want to pass on to my children. And I think that
Yeah.
so many of us wish we had had that adult in our life to say that to us
Yeah.
when we needed it most.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
For
So,
sure.
number 4, can you name a book that has inspired you on your journey?
It's a relatively short book, but I love it. I've probably read it like 2 or 3 times. It's called Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon.
Yep.
And yes, I love that book. Actually, Tiji Lyle, my business coach, she was the one that recommended it to me, on my journey to starting the First Generation Purpose Project, because I just thought, like, oh my gosh, like everything has to be like absolutely original, like has to like be a thought baby from my head right now. And she was like, no, actually, nothing is really original. Like, nothing is really like everything, like there's nothing new under the sun, right? So you really get to leverage the resources of so many different people to build something that is ultimately your unique thing. And Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon is just such an amazing, very simple kind of articulation of what that looks like, and I love it.
Such a good book. And I had a very similar struggle with like every process of the children's book. Like I was trying to write my author's bio and I like literally was just looking at a blank, like flashing, Word doc page. And I was like, this is insane. And my coach similarly was like, go to the library, get 10 children's book, read the author bios, see the format, copy the ones you
literally
like just do that. And I had spent like weeks and weeks like trying to draft from scratch. Why?
Yeah.
I don't know why we do this to ourselves.
Still like an artist. Like an artist.
So last but not least, what do you think separates happy lawyers from lawyers who struggle to find happiness in life with a law degree?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think the thing that separates happy lawyers from others who struggle is really try to fit into what I perceive as an antiquated paradigm of what it means to be a lawyer. I think we're becoming more and more diverse. And the zeitgeist of our time is like one of diversity, of acceptance, of really embracing who we are. So we get to like really navigate the spaces with that in mind. And there's definitely courage that has to come with that, right? Like no one is necessarily going to like encourage you like from the get, like be who you are. Especially in like the law firm where a certain paradigm has like always worked. But I do think, I'm a happy lawyer who works in big law, right? Like that's not the paradigm or that's not the narrative that's being disseminated far and wide. I am courageous enough to kind of shift that narrative and disseminate what it looks like to be a happy lawyer that works in big law, because I refuse to fit into an antiquated paradigm of what it means for me to be a lawyer, right? So yeah, I think that's for me what separates that.
You've so perfectly articulated something that I've only recently starting to understand about the Happy Lawyer Project itself, in that this show is not about staying in the legal profession or leaving the legal profession or making the best of where you are or helping people transition. Yeah. It's not about any of that. All it is about is figuring out what works
being happy.
For you. Exactly. What brings you joy and how that works with your being a lawyer and how that
exactly
throughout your career, throughout your life, throughout the seasons of kind of what you're experiencing as a human.
Yes.
I think the interviews
so much true.
And the show and the whole project is really about supporting lawyers in whatever stage they are in their process. And I have no judgment on how they choose to experience it.
Yeah. And if I say one last thing, like, it's just so, I love that you said that, because, the way I came to the Happy Lawyer Project, and I listened to probably 10 podcasts in the matter of like a couple of days, right? Like I was so amazed and just so impressed by your platform and just by what you did and just by the stories. And I remember really resonating with the Happy Lawyer Project, because I thought that I wanted to leave the legal field. So I was like, oh, this is for people who want to leave the legal field. But then I saw that a lot of the tools could be used in the space that I'm in, right? Like just so many amazing tools, like time management and delegation. I remember you had a podcast on delegating, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is
I love delegation. I know. It's my jam.
Amazing. And And it all came, like, it all kind of like really kind of came full circle. Like, it helped me really be a happy lawyer. Notwithstand, like, and not because I quit being a lawyer per se, or not because I went into a totally different space, but because I really learned what it meant to be like authentic and not, like, again, not try to fit into an antiquated paradigm of what it meant to be a lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what does it mean for me to be a happy lawyer? And I get to find that where I'm at, or change, like, whatever, right? So yeah, thank you, Akoma, for the Happy Lawyer Project.
Well, that warms my heart, so thank you. Before we wrap up, I have a listener question that I got today on Instagram. And so I got a question from Melissa, and she wants to know what advice you have for dealing with the guilt that comes with surpassing your parents.
Wow. Yeah. So that's definitely something I dealt with. And it reminds me of a quote by Marion. I forgot her last name, but okay, I forgot the quote. But what I will say is, walk in your bigness. You serve no one by staying small. You serve no one by staying small. And in fact, you actually hurt yourself and others by staying in your smallness. So there's a privilege, and to some extent, there's a responsibility that comes with this newfound purpose that you're walking in. And keep walking, like really keep walking, because you really get to help your family, help yourself, help your future generations, and you get to be happy. Like, you get to be happy. And that was another big realization for me. It's like, I really do get to be happy in all of this.
That's a wonderful place to leave it. Before I let you go, can you just remind people of the best way to follow you and learn more about the First Generation Purpose Project?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at the First Generation Purpose Project. And you can follow me on LinkedIn at Rukayatu Tijani. And you can follow me on the web at firstgenpurposeproject.com. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I will include links to all of that at thehappylawyerproject.com. So you guys should head over there if you're out and about and don't have a pen. Write that down. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. And if you got value out of this episode and you think there's someone else who might enjoy it, I'd love for you guys to share. And if you have any questions for me, please head over to the website at thehappylawyerproject.com, and you can leave me a voicemail right on the website. When you get there, you'll see a little tab on the right hand of the screen, and you can click on it and leave a voicemail there. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. Last but not least, if you enjoy this podcast and you like the content that I'm bringing to you guys, and you haven't done so already, I would really encourage you guys to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and review. That's all for this week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.